Before we descend into tonight's nightmare, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join me twice a week for original tales born from the deepest, darkest pits of my mind. Welcome to Voices in the Dark. Even now, years later, when the memory claws its way out of the dark and into my waking mind, I tell myself it was just a trick of the light, a fever dream, a story born from too many nights alone, too much whiskey, and the kind of slow, gnawing dread you get from living in a place that never quite feels like home. But there are things I remember with a clarity so sharp it hurts. The cold linoleum under my feet, the smell of rain and burnt coffee, and the sound of my own voice coming from the other side of my apartment door. I moved into 7B in the spring, when the city was still shaking off winter and everything smelled like wet concrete. The building was old, a crumbling brownstone in a neighborhood that was trying, too hard maybe, to gentrify. I was 25, broke, and grateful for anything with hot water and a lock that worked. My landlord, a doughy man named Mr. Dorset, had a smile like a chipped plate and a handshake that lingered just a little too long. "You're lucky," he said, as he slid the lease across the scarred kitchen table. "This unit doesn't stay vacant for long." I signed, and 2 days later I was hauling boxes up the narrow staircase, my breath echoing in the tile-lined halls. The apartment was small, a kitchenette, a bedroom with a radiator that clanged all night, and a living room with a single window that looked out over a graffiti-tagged alley. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The first week was uneventful. I unpacked, started my new job at the call center, and spent my evenings watching TV or scrolling aimlessly through my phone. The neighbors kept to themselves. There was an old woman in 7A who smoked on the fire escape and never made eye contact, and a couple in 7C who argued in Polish late into the night. The rest of the building was quiet. Too quiet, maybe, but I chalked it up to thick walls and city fatigue. It started with the footsteps. Late one night, as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard someone walking in the hallway outside my door. Not the heavy, uneven gait of Mr. Dorset, or the shuffling slippers of the woman in 7A, but something lighter, quicker. It paced back and forth, pausing every so often right in front of my door, as if listening. I held my breath, heart thudding, until the footsteps faded away. The next morning, I mentioned it to Mr. Dorset as I passed him in the lobby. He just shrugged. "Probably the pipes," he said, and gave me that too long smile. But the footsteps kept coming. Every night, always between midnight and 3, always stopping at my door. Sometimes I'd hear a soft scratching sound, like nails dragging across wood. Once, I thought I heard a voice, a low murmuring whisper. But when I pressed my ear to the door, there was only silence. I started sleeping with the lights on. A week later, I came home from work to find my apartment door ajar, not just unlocked, but wide open, swaying slightly in the drafty hallway. My stomach dropped. I checked every room, every closet, every shadowed corner, but nothing was missing. Nothing was out of place. Still, I changed the locks and started keeping a baseball bat by my bed. The next night, the footsteps stopped. For a while, things went back to normal. The city warmed, the snow melted, and I started to feel almost comfortable in my new home. I even made friends with the couple in 7C, Tomas and Marta, who invited me over for pierogi and vodka on Friday nights. They laughed when I told them about the footsteps. This building is haunted, Tomasz said, slapping the table. Every old place in this city is haunted. Marta just smiled. Maybe the ghosts like you. I laughed too, but I never really believed in ghosts. Not until the night I woke to the sound of my own voice screaming. It was a guttural, animal sound so raw and desperate that it took me a full minute to realize it was coming from the hallway. I scrambled out of bed, clutching the bat, and crept to the door. The screaming stopped. For a moment, there was only the sound of my own ragged breathing. Then I heard it. My voice, unmistakably, calling for help. "Please, let me in," it sobbed. "Please." I yanked open the door, expecting what? A prank? A drunken neighbor? Some idiot kid? But the hallway was empty, stretching away in both directions like a throat. The lights flickered. Far off, I heard the rattle of the elevator. My voice echoed again, softer now, plaintive. "Please, let me in. Please." I slammed the door and locked it, pressing my back against the wood. The bat trembled in my hands. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I knocked on Tomasz and Marta's door. They looked tired, bleary-eyed. "Did you hear anything weird last night?" I asked. Tomasz shook his head. "We sleep like we were dead," Marta frowned. "Why? What happened?" I hesitated. I think someone was in the hall. Someone who sounded like me. Marta's eyes widened. She glanced at Tomasz, then back at me. "You should be careful," she said softly. "There are stories." Stories? About things that live in old buildings. Things that can... She searched for the word. Mimic. Tomasz snorted. "Old wives' tales." But Marta just watched me, her gaze steady and unblinking. That night, I pushed my dresser in front of the door. I left every light on. Around midnight, I heard the footsteps again. This time, they didn't stop at my door. They kept going, past 7A, past 7C, all the way to the end of the hall. Then, silence. I tried to tell myself it was over, that whatever it was, it had moved on. But I started noticing other things, little things. Sometimes when I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror, I thought I saw my lips moving a half second out of sync with my thoughts. Sometimes when I picked up the phone, there was a faint echo on the line. A ghost of my own voice, repeating everything I said. Once, as I was leaving for work, I saw myself walking down the opposite end of the hallway, carrying a bag of groceries. I blinked, and it was gone. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. The world blurred into a haze of exhaustion and paranoia. One night, as I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, I heard a soft knock at the door. Not the heavy, insistent pounding of Mr. Dorset, but a gentle, tentative tap. I sat up, heart racing. The knock came again. "Who is it?" I called. There was a pause. Then, "It's me." My own voice, muffled by the door. "Let me in," it said. "Please." I grabbed the bat and crept to the door. "Go away," I whispered. The voice on the other side whimpered. "Please, I don't want to be alone. I pressed my eye to the people. The hallway was empty. But the voice kept pleading, softer and softer, until it was just a breath against the wood. The next morning, I found muddy footprints outside my door. Their feet, long-toed, leading away toward the stairwell. I followed them, down and down, until they disappeared at the basement landing. I stared at the door for a long time. It was locked, but the keyhole was smeared with something dark and sticky. I went back to my apartment and called my mother. I tried to explain, but she just told me to get some sleep, to take care of myself. I hung up and stared at the phone until the battery died. A few days later, Marta came to see me. She looked even paler than usual. Her eyes ringed with dark circles. "You have to leave," she whispered. "It knows you now." I wanted to ask what she meant, but I was so tired. I just nodded and closed the door. That night I dreamed of the hallway. I was running, but my legs wouldn't move. Something was chasing me. Something with my face. I woke up, screaming. The sheets tangled around my body like a shroud. I packed a bag and left the next morning. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just ran, as far and as fast as I could, until the city was nothing but a smear of headlights in the rearview mirror. But sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet and the shadows start to crawl, I hear footsteps in the hall. And sometimes, just sometimes, I hear my own voice whispering from the darkness, "Please, let me in." But I never do.